Dear guests, we can start our session devoted to collaboration of artificial intelligence and culture, and we will have 10 speakers from Russia, USA, Germany, Italy, and in advance I would like to thank all the speakers for having found time to participate in this event. And of course, I would like to thank Russian Economic University, Plekhanov Russian University of Economics, that invited us to organize this session. I do not want to uh, dwell upon the introduction for a long time, but I would like to mention one aspect. Several weeks ago, when I was talking to one of the directors of a federal museum, I told him about this session, that it's really interesting that for the first time, artificial intelligence enters the sphere of culture. And he said, yes, the future is there. I said, wait a bit. Here we have speakers that can prove that this is already used in museums, and if it has come to the museum, it means that this is the past, because we know that things that can be found in museum actually reflect our history. And today, we will not actually speak whether this is good or bad, that artificial intelligence comes to culture. We will always speak about the prospects of the way artificial intelligence and digital technologies can be used today to make this soft and subtle sphere of culture and art interesting, useful, more advanced. And these will be discussed by our speakers. Now I would like to give the floor to Bernardino Brocker Peter. I guess that this is one of the main drivers in the world using technological innovations in art. She is general director in Stereo Labs. This is a company that organizes unbelievable things for art institutions, and I think that she will tell us about it in the best way. Colleagues, could you please connect Zoom? Colleagues, please connect Zoom. We have online speakers. How can we hear them? Sorry. Just in case, while we're waiting, I would like to remind our speakers that we will have a lot of presentations. That's why our time is limited, 6 to 7 minutes for each presentation. And of course, we will be happy to hear any questions from the audience and from our listeners in YouTube. And it's quite ridiculous then we have digital technology problems at a session devoted to digital technologies.
I would like to give the floor to Oleg Yusupov. She's the general director of the technological company Digitalism. I learned about Oleg from his Telegram channel, and he is the author of digital art, and he provides us quite an extensive information on the artificial intelligence. He is the ambassador of his company, and Oleg promotes the same type of technologies in Russia. The floor is yours. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, we can see. I have just 8 minutes. I'll try to just cover everything what I can. I'm Monica Supaka, and I am the director of the company Digital Art, and we are fully in charge of providing solutions to the field of digital art. And let me expatiate how the technological capabilities may be applied as a part of XR. When I get started, let me just highlight that as of 2015, we've been dealing with the computer graphics, the AR, VR, CGML, and also we have been nominated onto the International Award 60 Plus, the Master's Program in the Aviation Institute, and we have more than 50 clients that try to be fundamental in our studies. And we are talking about physical and digital and how it is going to be mixed up and how it's going to change. And in our understanding, we have some kind of conjugation of physical and digital. That's a blending. And in practical terms, we have some kind of capability, which is called the cyber physical system, which is a part of the fourth industrial revolution. And today we use it as an umbrella term. And let me draw your attention onto the IA plus art means a creative. And the key thing here to mention is that people are kind of scared of artificial intelligence, that people will be jobless, that people will be enslaved. And so far, this is a debatable issue, and human being plus artificial intelligence provides a really good this blending named strengthens the intellect. And the father founders of computer science actually had this term strengthened intelligence, and the machines plus a human being could be blended. And we have this formula in place in any occasion. So we can use it for different purposes, for different reasons. And we may have it as an integration with robots, with MFT, integration, MyAir, VR, and we are a specific company, and we try to promote such an approach that CG artist or painter, anyone may use the algorithms of VR and machine learning mechanism. In other words, and we are creating some kind of a content. And in practical terms, I should say that on the left-hand side, we have a picture, one of the famous picture of Svetlin, and it was not, it was presented at Art Life, the Festival of Family Art, 4 years ago. And for 4 years, we've been implementing this particular project physically, and we were supposed to just have a special application. And when we just try to compose some kind of a picture here, we have some kind of a content, a nice looking one. And at the inlet, we have the painter's masterpiece. Then we have another picture how the AR somehow transformed the picture. Also adding some text. For example, it's a logical forest or a magical forest, Alice in Wonderland, and we see here that thanks to algorithms, we have some kind of transformations. And on the right-hand side, we see some kind of a blending of an artist and computer science. And thus, we adding some other details so that the composition is complete. And let me give you another example. That is Dalgan. We need it for a speedy process. And video has some kind of neural networks, and we somehow conjugated it or superimposed it using the 3D technology. And it will be a part of the augmented reality. And at the primitive stage, having the gray color, we put some objects, and the neural networks on your real time transformed it into something good looking. It was kind of a photorealism. And this particular approach may be extrapolated further and maybe applied. And we used as GTA5 and neural networks. And it is very close. It is a very close scene, close to the reality, the actual reality. And we're going to show you a more realistic video. So gaming industry provides such images very close to the reality. So physical and virtual reality is something we are working with it. And we try to use originally the real object. And we show the artist who somehow paint some specific objects, and we may just shoot it, and we see the objects, and this is the part of the virtual reality and standard image. Yeah. And we also had a project which has been nominated for a special award. And I'm going to show you another example, another mechanics when we have a person in the virtual reality, and he around him somehow depicts certain components, and we had on the right-hand side the original, and we were supposed to embed the statistics and also somehow liven up this image, and so we cut a human being straight from that picture. We decided to use the style as a key one, a fundamental one, using neural networks, and we also recorded a girl having a similar dress and similar posture. She starts doing some kind of movements, then we had some kind of superimposition on video, and then conjugated with some three objects. And finally got a very nice looking painting. And so my last example is how we may use this particular technology for some standard video. Everyone knows what cake is, and how this could be extrapolated on the human beings. And so we decided launching of the project. It's a deepfake one, and it is made on the basis of one photo in full HD format. This is an unprecedented technology. And if you have a look, normally some celebrities having their large data sets become the object of such projects. Also, we have some examples having one or two photos, and we may use some kind of models for that. And we, as a part of our digital class, to create the AI like before, and we do not have any code. So we have somehow minimized the threshold for specialists, and the data size is a part of the machine learning, but it is a very expensive process, and in order to do so, we have to get it somehow straight originally, and not to extrapolate extra force for efforts. And actually, you may subscribe, and these are my contacts. Thank you so much. I'll be more happy to follow your questions. You talked about projects, and originally I thought that it is a very painstaking effort. And this kind of inlet is somewhat close. You are supposed to have specific competences. Do we have a sufficient number of specialists in Russia being able to exercise those competences? And how many experts do we need? I mean, the project which was nominated for a specific award. Now, everything depends on the creativity of a human being. Actually, you have to conjugate the creativity plus technical skills. And we've been working with quite a number of people as part of this project. I don't know exactly how many people were involved. It's a large scale project. And our team encompassed 10 personalities. And we had R&D, machine learning specialists, CG painters, and also the Unity developers. And as a minimum, such team is necessitated. Yes, originally you had this education in Russia originally or in the United States. Is it hard to become a part of this machine learning project? Indeed, we have the master's degree school and we have a very good mathematical school in Russia. But as to the computer graphics, normally we have specialists who come from 3D modeling area or design area, and so far we do not have too much specific courses of that sort, but they are emerging. But Unity, I have this kind of education provided at the private level, and we also have some master's degree programs. And these three business areas have become a part of our master's program, which is a unique one. Thank you so much for your very interesting presentation. And now I would like to give the floor to Marina Viktorovna Tsiguleva, and she is at the head of the legal service of the State Hermitage. You probably heard that Hermitage has become a real ball museum, a very universal one in terms of their initiatives. And this August, they, for the first time, sold in TikTok the painting worth 32 million. And nowadays they have opened an exhibition for the painters which are somehow invisible. And we have NFT projects, and thus we would like to hear from you, from her, how all these AI projects become a part of the inclusive programs as well. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to have a say here. And let me highlight what kind of projects are in the pipeline in Heritage with regard to the inclusive project plus AI. It was a real disruptive project, and now we have a new exhibition. And on a parallel basis, on the 12th of October, we opened a new one, which is called Invisible Art, expanding the borders of the possible. And it is dedicated to the inclusive projects. And before I get started, let me say a few words about the AI and its position in the museum and its role in the museum. For me, it was really interesting to follow one phrase of the Skoko Foundation department. So we are on the verge of the new creative era, and when painters and engineers augment one another, showing their strong sides, this is an absolute reality. But I wouldn't use the subjective mode that we're on the threshold. I think that we have already just surpassed the threshold, and we have become a part of the era of AI, and the human being tends to be a co-author of all these works of art jointly with AI. how everything is being generated due to the activity of the human being while interacting with AI on the basis of the museum artifacts. And in this sense, I would like to give another example as to how artificial intellect is being employed in the sphere of inclusion project. For quite a number of years, we've been elaborating the methodology for inclusion, and invisible art has become a very significant project. And people, this is designated for people with impaired eyesight or just the blind people. And we've been studying for quite a number of years these works of art in order to present them at the exhibition, and they somehow have become presented alive. And we had some kind of models of the Rembrandt's picture having some kind of relief. And the idea of this exhibition is to show those who have a good eyesight that it's a real hard thing to live without eyesight and to be blind. And this is some kind of a revolutionary approach. We do not have to simplify the entire scheme of it. What are those standard inclusive methodology? They simplify everything to a large extent, but hereby the situation looks somewhat different. And we discussed it with other people who have an impaired eyesight or blind. We are not idiots. We do not want to simplify anything. We want to see things better and understand how other people may see certain works of art and how do they feel. And well, ordinary people have to learn how other people with impaired eyesight might feel. And it was kind of our long-period dream to try to test everything, to actually tackle everything. And we have the Rembrandt's self-portrait with some darkened eyes, and it was presented at the exhibition back in 2018. It was a collection from the United States, and the model was restored by our specialist, by Igor Molkiye. And this is a real size 3D model, and it's a genuine picture of Rembrandt, and he was turned into the 3D out of 2D image. And actually, they have become authors of the brand new painting of the applied decorative art due to the volume, due to the shape, and that you may just touch it. And they actually use their own skills and they selected the best possible technologies for transfer of shade and light. And they came to a conclusion that the best solution to present a copy is to have something having relief and some kind of bas relief. And actually, some kind of sculptures which simulate a shade on a picture present that image. Actually, never before such a volumetric paintings were exhibited. And the idea behind was how to adequately present these plastics as the reflex of a painting. And one of the most efficient methods for 3D models was to resort to the technique of modeling and have this spline. These are 3D curves which are the basis for the 3D frame. And then we have some kind of geometrical model in place. And we used this particular model, and our masters to restore to the object never seen in the reality. And we do not have the portraits of Rembrandt in a form of a sculpture. And people should actually see this portrait touching it. And we did it in consultation with our specialists and senior fellows. And actually, we had to understand how Rembrandt might have looked like. And the sculpture was composed by the AR. They're not that popular. And okay, so I have to finish up. I understand they are not very popular as the paintings are, but I should give you an example of a painting which was presented at the AR, and that was the picture of David Aquayola, and he actually made a picture in the nighttime, and then it superimposed AI using the French edition. So I'm kind of speeding up, but we know our experts livened up quite a number of other paintings, and they augmented certain components to that paintings using some components as if it was a perforation of a film. And it was some kind of animated cartoons provided and some kind of volumetric painting techniques were provided, and that's another disruptive project. This exhibition is going to be over on the 12th of December, and there are quite a number of interesting things to see and to touch. And when I was prepared for that session, and there were very interesting questions placed, is the AI the support in the restoration, or it somehow hampers the entire process? And I would like to answer this question as it is an absolutely unequivocal one. And the split between the AI and the human being is not that distinctive. And this border is not very distinctive. And the human being somehow tunes in the model of various sorts, thus applying the variety of techniques. And the AR presents some ordinary tools in the very interesting and new experimental field for a painter in the visual art, and automates all the routine processes. And the more the process is automated, the more valuable becomes the idea behind it, behind the AI and the person who is creating something. And we have some kind of technical skills to be available, and but some are not so necessary. And so the idea becomes the driving force of the advancement of art, and the generation of ideas is a key premise. But not everything may be implemented by AI. And so getting back to the subject matter of my discussion as how to apply AI to inclusion, we may provide some fair conditions for everybody. And it is a real great idea per se, and very good for the society. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. When we were getting ready to this session, I really wanted to find an example when artificial intelligence did something very useful, something that can be physically touched. And when I talked to Marina Viktorovna, and she told us about this inclusive exhibition, and this is not a usual exhibition, it's something that we can. This is not something that we can see in various museums, not only in Russia, but in other countries as well. And it's really touching, Marina Viktorovna. But I have a question. Speaking about artificial intelligence, we have engineers, developers, designers probably, but what about tourists? Well, actually, result of intellectual activities described by our colleagues, described by me, as any other result of intellectual activities, it should belong to someone. It means that someone has achieved it. And she uses this intellectual activity result lies within the sphere of law. What can we use, how we use it, what is the type of this work of art, was it processed, is it independent, what is it actually? So for a lawyer, you find a lot of questions that are first of all associated with the definition of the legal nature of this work. What rights emerge, rights belong to the holder, what can the holder give, and what artificial intelligence is in this context. It means that there are more questions than answers for a lawyer. Thanks a lot. And I guess that we can give the floor to the next speaker, distinguished speakers. I have a request, if possible, please try to be brief. And now I would like to give the floor to our colleagues from Unify, and they assure that artificial intelligence can help us determine the value of a painting. And I invite here Fabrizio Malfanti, co-founder and head of artificial intelligence, ERA and Kayla for artificial intelligence. Could you please connect our speaker? Fabrizio, thanks a lot. Now you can come to the Hermitage and say what is beautiful and what isn't beautiful. But recently, my friend asked me a question, and I think that it will be quite relevant for you as well. And I request other speakers to answer this question as well. So these algorithms that you described today are developed mostly by people who earn quite good money or medium money, who are educated of specific class and status, and do have any apprehensions that in future this algorithm may compromise itself, because actually it was developed by the people with specific expectations, specific habits, and so on. So from museums, from the estimation of art, we can go to public art, and I would like to give the floor to Veronika Kondorova, PR director of the festival, that actually was in all Instagrams of the Diploma programs at Petersburg. This now she is by PR director of Frostbank Future Cities Festival. The floor is yours. So could you please switch on the presentation of Veronika?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, say something. Please say something. 1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody. I'll try to be as brief as I can and not going to elaborate on the subject. My name is Veronika. I'm in charge not only of festivals, but also modern art and all various types. And very briefly, I should say that everything looks very exciting today, and we may go to all kinds of museums, and we may also afford ourselves to buy NFT works of the modern painters and become very popular if they do something extraordinary. And please do not hesitate and visit the Fine Arts Museum or Museum of Local Art, as there are quite a number of new technologies which are visible now, and it becomes the tradition from the good old times. And there are quite a number of questions to pose and about some real questions of the real. And we in Moscow have quite a number of museums, and it's kind of a fashionable thing to go to museums. But as to regions, and they do not look very appealing. They have special guardians there, elderly people, and they are not very friendly with you. And nowadays, we're talking about the AI, and people try to dive into that type of art, and everyone now says that yes, if you have no chance to go to the museum, you may use the interactive internet programs, but actually the live art, the one you may see with your own eyes, well, has actually to become a tradition and not otherwise. So we have three types of the art representations. On the left-hand side, we see Rosban Future Cities Festival, and we joined it with Oleg Yusupov, worked together. Oleg, hello. And these guys created a platform for us so that we may visualize all the paintings. Polina Osipova presents the second picture. She comes from St. Petersburg, and she uses AI in order to show some kind of lost components and lost details. She comes from a very small town not far from Chuvashia. She came to St. Petersburg. She was the researcher of the Russian identity. And when we had the Biennale of the young art. So she actually was a part of the Gucci collaboration, and she researched upon various arts of old decorations along as a frame of the old buildings and windows. And on top, there were some frogs. Not so far from Vyborg, there was a small village providing these lost details. And these are things which could never ever be seen, only thanks to the AI. We have forensic architecture entity, and in the Tretyakov Gallery has an exhibition coordinated by Dasha Parhomenko, and they have some works of art coming from the painters of that group. And these were the real-time events being represented there, and they're also developing the news fakes. When some acts of terror occur, they actually try to view this from various angles, what really happened in Russia, in Palestine, and other areas, and how the mass media uh, provide information to us. CNN and BBC not always tell us the truth. They are not the painters 100%, but they are nowadays the key players represented in large museums in Barcelona and Magna, and they are visible in every collection of the modern art. Let me say a few words about the festival, just briefly. You've probably heard Rose Bank. In the name of that festival, it is supported by Bank. AR so far present very expensive technologies, and therefore, in order to organize something grand, we need the sponsors and partners. And thus, we should especially thank Bank companies for their funding. And thus we are able to show the works of art in Yekaterinburg, Krasnodar, Krasnoyarsk, Moscow, Nizhny Novgorod, and St. Petersburg. And we wanted to organize it in such a way that people in that cities and towns would take another new look onto what is available and visit the museums. And in some cities and towns, it's still a problem to visit this or that museum. And the festival was organized in the midst of the 25th wave of COVID, and we couldn't. Actually, the government didn't allow people to visit museums and as a crowd, and then QR codes were incorporated, and other towns had their own restrictions and limitations, and therefore this festival was some kind of a story to get escaped within the museum and have a good time together with a young painter. The key idea of the festival is to explain people that the contemporary art is not always understandable, but there's nothing fearful about it, and it's not at all useless. And the young painters are inspired by the classical works of art. And there's an opinion that the modern art, the contemporary art, uh, actually something which can be done by everybody. Even myself or my kid can do the same thing, and he can do it better. But there is some kind of gap between the classics and the modern art. And we study art, and we may become a part of the art school and become curators, or we may somewhere may be employed by a museum. And then we have a gap after the fifth or sixth grade, and then we start visiting museums as they are placed on some exhibitions as they are placed on 10 top recommended for visits. But the works of art may be put onto your telephone and downloaded onto other devices, and the art may allow you to visualize some infrastructure of the cities and towns like walls, pavement, and other regular buildings we're normally passing by every day. And we have to be more keen as to what is going around. This is some kind of an aspect of an observer, which is really praised. And the festival is something more accessible than the visit to the museum. So the festival was free of charge. It was 0 plus, every age category could be a part of this festival. The a child should actually be accompanied by parents, or there should be some gadget, iPhone, Xiaomi, or Samsung, everything which may actually show these works of art. Next slide, please. Further on, I would like to show you quite a number of pictures in Instagram. You may save them in here. The idea of Instagram is just to show not only the festival per se, but describe the essence of the artificial intelligence and how you personally may create such a work of art. And we invited 5 young painters. And if you subscribe, you may just follow their biographies. And prior to that, some guys used to work in the sphere of art or in the sphere of AI. And they, for the first time, started using not just Instagram accounts, but everything was beyond these metrics. They studied the landscape of the city. They identified the location for their works of art. Next slide, please. This is an example as to how we wanted to popularize our festival. Modern art is not clear to everybody. This is the facade of Yeltsin Center in St. Petersburg, and we invited the local painters to work together with our painters, and such project has been implemented, and it was very lavishly decorated for 2 days. And this is an application which was available to everybody. It is a user-friendly one, and they can easily handle it. Next slide, please. So what is going on here? We had quite a number of offline events. Sofia Skidan is the name of a painter. She used some kind of yoga session, and so that we may understand the essence of this particular picture. We are all tied up to the polarization of what we're doing. We had offline event on Strelka, and as many people as it was possible provided their hashtags, and actually were a part of our events. And we also invited the House of Ustinov's painters. They work with AI, which somehow reflects the movement, the musical musical art, and it's some kind of a continuous process. They use some kind of echo or some kind of sounds from inside, and they have some kind of an audio provided further. A couple of comments of cute art and other international projects, and I would like you to highlight these projects and actually put them in your list, and you may see what is available just staying home. Next slide, please. Ars Electronica they're very interesting guides. They work with color, with music, with the psychological perception of various works of art, and they use AI for that particular purpose as well. Japanese Media Art Festival, please do follow what is going on in Asia. They always have something ultra new, not always understandable, but the Japanese use the system of face recognition in order to make art which will be actually accessible and affordable to us, and should be liked by us. Wroclaw. Wroclaw is a capital of some ultra modern artificial intelligence applied everywhere, and they use it pretty often in a number of museums. Please do not hesitate and visit this Media Art Biennale so that you may appreciate the spectrum of all the works of art provided. File Festival, it's another story and another country. It's Brazil and Latin America, and they have the largest event of that area. And if you may afford the trip to Brazil, you should do it for sure. And also they have some business programs, educational programs available. You may actually plug in and follow everything they have there. Next slide, please. I'm not going to reiterate it once again. I think further you will have these presentations. And next slide. Yes, very briefly, I would like to say a few words about our market, and that what I managed to present what happens abroad. Sorry, we're pressed for time. We would like to follow everyone's speaker's presentation and a couple of comments on the painters. Anya presents Forbes Russia, and she is here with us. And Anya is a good example of how the graphic designer turned into the painter. But she started working with AI projects. Anya, we're pressed for time. Please say a few words about your expertise. If I have to note, I have some kind of very short time slot, and let me apply it very efficiently. I am a graphic designer and I'm a painter and I am a fan of the history of art. And today I would like to talk about some new possibilities and new potentials among those who create certain works of art. And what is anticipated in the future and what will be the takeaway of that process? Let's start from the history of art. I guess it's a very substantial item for us to discuss. I would like to share my screen with you. Yes, that's how it looks like. History of digital art, new technologies, computer art, and AI. And it's 70 years old, by the way. The first works in the computer art appeared back in 1950s. And within the first 20 years, the computer art was created by engineers and mathematicians, as computers were extremely expensive with a limited access. And there was the Well Lab institution. It had telephone bells, computer bells, and this was the first lab to have computer technologies performances. And musicians were invited there as well as other painters and the people of art. And as a result of this particular development back in the 70s, the first computer program emerged aimed at the creation of some works of art. And AI started creating various works of art at the level of engineers, artists, and those interested in the logical process of computer technique and technologies. At the previous page, we had computer-based works of art, but here you see graph, here you see silk embroidery and other techniques. And back in the 80s, digital technologies have become a part of our life. And that was the boost of the digital art. And Norval presented a very interesting case. It was a kind of advertisement of Omega 100 that was Commodore International PC created at this point of time. And back in the 90s, people were keen into on the advancement of digital technologies and downloading video on computers, and the painter could manipulate the image. And accordingly, back in the 90s, video art appeared. And all these technologies, the AI computer technologies, brought about another situation when we had some novelties and computers technologies available, and they were somehow embedded in the fabric of our life. And back in the 2000s and 2010, quite a number of other exhibitions were organized, though the AI generative art and public art And museums were visited by the younger generation, and they actually were never interested in the contemporary art in the past. And thus, today, we may say with the 100% assurance that the musical communication is a key priority and a part of the interaction with the audience, as it used to be back in the 60s or 70s, and that was music. And any image, any video, immediately says whether you are an alien here or you just share these particular ideas.
Thinking about NFT, I think that it's not by chance that art became actually the place where NFTs are promoted to a wide audience. As I said, picture has become the main method of communication, and NFTs gave us the opportunity to get digital art needed. That is to become public and to become saleable. And it is that they heard these presentations, and even here we've heard that digital art is not like a real art. It is an art that is somehow below the level of traditional art, and this is something that digital art has been fighting for the last 20 years. And regarding myself, I can say that. Well, sorry, I get shifted a bit. Can you see this image normally, or check it? We can see it normally, but we can increase its size. Okay, and please follow the time. And okay, just a moment. Just a moment. Actually, I use computer technologies, and I have used them since I started the Academy of Art. All the people around me were using traditional techniques, but at that time I realized that traditional techniques are not for me. And not, it wasn't only about me, some other people thought so as well. But Beatrice Kov and Juan Dinasha from Channel One, and they also experienced the situation when they were creating something for which there was no market. It means that we could not say that we were creating artworks, and that's why we went somewhere where we were able to apply our skills, knowledge, the television, advertising agencies, content, social media, and other things. And actually, I was working with 3D and animation. I was developing games. I worked in advertising. I worked with video clips and some other things. And also now this year, thanks to NFT and the change that we've seen over the last year, finally, although it was difficult for me, but I can call myself an artist. And actually, all the story regarding selling works of art, creative works on NFT platforms, various posts, is really relevant because um, we are actually witnessing the situation that we experienced several years ago regarding music and films. You cannot get content if you do not pay for it. And the same things that go on regarding pictures means that you cannot download the picture for free. And if people sold for 60 million, it means that many people that are below its level in this pyramid can come to visual art, not only film art, they can also become designers. They can prepare videos, make films. But in the situation when we are entering back to the universe, more and more this is essential because developers need designers and designers need developers. Something that very soon that all the universes actually are, they are already being created. So more and more designers will go to meta universe because there is a huge field there. There's something that you can create a fantasy world in there. And now quite frequently we're guided by something we can see here around us, but in future we will recognize something that we cannot do here. This is the artists, designers, creators use the tablet with software to simulate watercolors, but now more and more people are to the pictures that they cannot create in real life. I'm sorry, but actually it's time to finish. Okay, I will be quick. So I want to mention that something that will be really relevant in the future. These are the ways to demonstrate this new art, digital art festivals, for example, Festival of Digital Digital Art Month, which has been conducted since 2019, and we're planning to have it as well. And a very beautiful exhibition that was mentioned, an exhibition in Hermitage. And this is Ethereal Ether. It's really beautiful. Here you can see works of art that do not exist in the real world. That was brief. I think that this is the future, and this is something we will see in the near future. Thanks a lot. Now we touched upon the issue of art market, and I would like to give the floor to Christina. And actually, I prepared a lot of questions to Christina. And of course, Christina is co-founder and CEO of Blockchain Art, an entrepreneur with more than 15-year experience of market development and a co-founder of Young Contemporary. I'm sure that you have a lot of other jobs. Can I stand up? I'm tired of sitting. I need to stand if you do not mind. Okay. Could you please switch on my slide? Please switch on the slides of Christina Steinbraham. Hello, thanks a lot for inviting me. And actually, I want to lead you to a different world from the standpoint of the market. As Alexandra mentioned, I am representing the market. I came from San Francisco in 2018 and I started working in this blockchain ecosystem at once. So I guess it doesn't function. Could you please switch to the next slide? Well, I represent the market. For the last 10 years, I was engaged with contemporary art fairs before I came to San Francisco. After that, I came to San Francisco and I decided that blockchain can be applied in the market of modern art. Previous speakers, including Veronica, mentioned that indeed for the artists that produce digital art, it was really hard to sell it. And in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, I started to pitch quite frequently. This was the market of modern art galleries and museums. So I told them that there is blockchain, it can be used. Let's work. Museums and galleries said no. Over the last 30 years, we have been selling digital art and we didn't succeed. We don't see any future there. Venture capital, I came to them and I said, there is blockchain. Let's sell art on blockchain. They said, no, we do not believe in the digital assets. No, that is too soon. So 2021 came and everything got started. I would like to ask you a very brief survey. Who bought NFT? Who bought NFT ever? Does anyone have a digital wallet? Crypto wallet? Okay. So in this audience, I guess that this is the next step for you, I suppose so. But you're here means that probably you're interested in digital art or in technologies used in the art. And what can we see this year? In the end of this year, we will receive the results regarding the sale of NFT, $3 billion. That is huge. That is dramatic growth if we compare it with the previous year. So the amount was hundreds of thousands, but this year we've had $3 billion, and as the previous figure said, Beeple was sold for $69 million early this year. And in principle, we're expecting that before the end of 2023, NFT sales will grow up to 80 billion US dollars. That is huge, huge growth. And in principle, my task as an entrepreneur in the traditional market is to bring the professional audience that exists now, that is now all modern art, to this layer for them to sell NFTs as well. Next slide, please. And we can see in principle that as art, as asset class, for the last few years, it has been growing. This is a very solid zone for investment. That's why indeed no one will be surprised that NFTs have grown in the sphere of art. And being an entrepreneur, I'm engaged in making existing businesses use blockchain. I work with galleries, museums, dealers, and I provide them solutions for them to be able to sell NFTs. And what's going on in the market now? Probably you've heard that there are OpenSea marketplace of Rarible, that is a Russian solution, and actually they direct address a creator. They say, creator, come to me, mint or list NFTs at my platform and sell it to your audience. Actually, it worked till the middle of this year, probably until the summer of this year. And after that, you guys, new studios appeared. And it's not the creator that mints NFTs, but the studios that come there with their money and promote their projects. What does it mean? It means that the creator, the current ecosystem, has to promote themselves. For example, Veronica, if you are an artist, if you say, I want to manage my NFTs, and artists try doing so, they posted their art on OpenSea, and after that, they saw that the ecosystem that actually there are long lists of artists, and Veronica will have to promote herself. And in this situation, in principle, this role model that in the beginning it was said that design, that all these intermediaries, all the galleries, but actually that is not the case because artists support once again. Well, we should not refer to them as galleries, but we can refer to them as intermediaries. These can be any intermediaries, these can be influencers, these can be journalists, or any other new creators, new people from different communities that are interested in art and that will promote art or tell their communities about these artists. And this is my business, this is where I go. And just in case, speaking about the market, so why did I decide to point it out? Intermediaries. I'm in California, and actually most time I pitch on the venture capital from America. And if you say that this is art, that you work with intermediaries, at once they have specific understanding this is a corner gallery, some old business. It's difficult for them to understand. That is not the case, that this layer that sells it, that are engaged in this work, actually produce a huge part of this business. That is 59 billion US dollars. 36 million of this amount count for the intermediaries that sell art. I know that you, as students of future managers, so why did I decide to come here? Actually, it was very interesting for me to date to talk to regulators. I'm looking to you, and I think that probably here we have lawyers, managers, probably some of you will work for state sector, and that is great. But think of the way you want to live in this new space, metaverse and meta universe, and what difficulties you can encounter. Being an entrepreneur, I actually am faced with the situation when I have to use cryptocurrency because everything's simpler there. And if I am faced with real currency, dollars, USDs, euros, my clients and I have problems because the regulator, that is the bank, cannot determine the rules of the game. For me, to be able to sell your NFT and for you to be able to buy this NFT and sell it afterwards because you are not a store. You're just an individual. How will you sell it? And how can we understand it? How can we make sure that you will not be engaged in money laundering? And that's why the business that I'm developing is continuously suspended. I work with Stripe Payment Integrator, and they stop me frequently because of some red flags. So they stop me, and I have to prove that this is not money laundering because money is in USD, and in cryptocurrency it is not checked. It's just sold, and that's it. And partially, I came here to talk to the regulator this morning, to talk to the government, to tell them about this problem. So, if the government wants to take part, if the government wants to motivate digital assets for them to be sold, for Russia to take part in this trade, it is necessary to think of the way the regulator will stimulate it and set the rules. May I ask you a question? Do you actually have an answer to this question? What kind of regulation do we need? Actually, we need to have it. So KYC, what kind of KYC we need to have to provide for it? In case of resale, what kind of legal entities can sell it? Do we need to establish a legal entity to sell it? Or if you want to resell something privately, how you do it? So you need to specify your tax ID or I don't know, some number that is used in a specific country. And now there are no regulations, not only in Russia, they are absent globally in the European Union and they are also absent in America to a large extent. And this is the problem. If you heard about NFT, now that is mostly about cryptocurrency. And if you want to buy it in future and take part in it, this issue should be regulated. Thanks a lot. Unfortunately, we do not have time for questions. We call Filippo Venderisabue, founder and CEO of Collateral. So please be concise and brief. Please switch on the slides of the column. contact director Mubert. I ask a question because actually I have several questions I would like to ask, but because our time is limited. I think that they will make us leave very soon. So Mubert is engaged in audio content production. That's right. And what about this process? How are the rights regulated? I mean, who owns the content? Artificial intelligence, artist, Hubert? And last question. So your team is mostly Russian speaking, but the company is registered in the USA. So what can I start with? Okay. Well, I guess that we first of all can move to the issue of art. My name is Pavel. I represent Uber's company. This is a company registered in the USA. And indeed, we have people from Ukraine, from the USA, from England, from Russia. Our team is distributed. We're about 30 people that work from various countries, and we work in online. We are completely digitalized, so we actually used to have an office, but we moved from there, and I guess that we will never need it in future. So why are we registered in the USA? I would like to answer this question first. Actually, it's easier to get investment in this sphere in the USA because in Russia, as I think, all this story of generative art is not really developed. Of course, in 2021, it is developing, and all the examples that we've seen today are really cool. But when we just started, it was difficult to obtain some investment. It was difficult to get trust from people. That's why we were registered there. It just was easier for us in terms of content, in terms of AI and other digital art stories. It was easier for us to work there in case we had this kind of legal entities because the technologies are integrated in the economy in a better way in the USA. Various content creation and tools and other things. And our first investors were the same guys that invested in the program in 2016, like Aspirate, or I don't remember the name actually, but this was a software that was developing pictures similar to the works of art of famous artists. There was a real hype of machine learning at that time, and without thinking about it for a long time, many investors decided to invest in such projects that are associated with all types of art, not only visual art. We engaged in music, and this is something different actually. Probably it's even more complicated than visual art because actually this is not something fixed. This is not static. This is a track, and it somehow develops. It changes emotions when a person listens to it, and this content actually takes more time, and that's why it's more difficult to develop it because you need to observe some dynamics. So how do we create music using artificial intelligence? There are three ways. The first one is training neural networks on, on continuous nodes, endless nodes from public domain. They're available, no copyright there because it has already finished, for example, classical works of some musicians, and all of that is downloaded into a model, a neural network, and it looks at interactions of nodes, and it can give you something new, something that is quite similar to the styles of these composers. Second variant, I guess that this is the best example, Open AI Jukebox. And this is the case when it's not the notes, but the ready works of art. We understand that in contemporary music, notes do not play a major role, as in the past, it is all based on the sound production and bits. Probably there is only one note in this work of art, but this work of art will be interesting because actually the I don't know, so like the height of music is different. For example, dubstep, it has existed for 20 years and it's quite popular still. So once again, it's possible to download ready tracks in the neural network, and it looks for some dependencies in the spectrum, and it tries to take all this noise and develop a new track out of it. And the third option that we use is collaboration with people. When there are musicians, people, sound designers that download various musical fragments. For example, some of them can play the guitar, the piano, the synthesizer. They recorded the sound, they sent it to us, and our artificial intelligence took this multi-million base of sounds and selected a Reddit track and made a Reddit track out of them. So actually, we are a bit different from other startups.
And we've been cooperating with the musicians, and AI presents some kind of a service which is a conglomeration of various algorithms like neuron networks and logistics, to name a few, and responding your question, who was the author of those samples downloaded into the database? You may actually do it yourself without any support of AI. Then the algorithms process those samples, and we are the authors of these algorithms. And the co-authors of this algorithm get the final product, and we license these works of art from the musicians. And once we are the owners of the title, we actually provide music, and we are the title holders afterwards. What are the questions to come? No, you answered it in full, but unfortunately, one speaker couldn't be followed. They represent Sberbank, and they're going to talk about the collaboration of technologies, culture, and AI. Maybe under the auspices of the Plihanus University, we may organize something extra to follow those speakers. Thank you so much. Thank you, the dear speakers offline and online. Thank you for coming. And we are really pressed for time. And Alexey Pivovarov says that all the benefits at our channel should be done by yourselves. Please visit theaters, museums, and have a good time. Thank you so much. Ты приработал, по-моему.